All right, today we will be pulling together all of our pieces of risk analysis and looking at how they can be used together. But before we do that, I want to give some final thoughts on risk matrices. I want to remind you that there is no standard size or type of matrix. It could have numbers on it, like this one, be quantitative, or it could just have more descriptions, like this one, that's more qualitative. And they don't even need to be symmetrical. Here we have a 5 by 5, and below is a 3 by 3. So those are symmetrical, but they could be a 5 by 4 or a 3 by 5. These are really customizable for your situation. You should especially customize the categories for your situation. They should relate to your given scenario. For this example, these are the categories for severity, for our consequence. And they were designed for a particular company to be relevant to all the situations that the company will cover, but they're still very specific to their particular company and the operations and the things that go on there. So they have 4 different categories: low, moderate, high, and very high. And they are looking at impacts or consequences to 5 different areas: human health, the environment, technical damages, financial impacts, and their scheduling as well, or scheduled impacts. In the environmental, let's look particularly at that. The environmental areas, the worst possible consequences for them, that would be 4 very high, would be that there's some release or some impact that's outside of their borders, so outside of the fence, with major long-term major damage here. The worst possible is not an entire continent or the world or even a region, but it's just outside of their property boundaries. That would be the worst possible consequence if something that they did impacted the environment outside of their boundaries. Now, I talked about looking at consequences to people, humans, the environment, and our assets, our money assets, but they've added these additional areas of technical damages and schedule impact. So those are things that are important to them as an organization, and they can think about how some hazardous events would affect the performance of the company in terms of production and schedule. You also don't need to stick to the magnitude of order guideline that I gave you. Remember, I said as we go from each category, from each number in our scale, from low to moderate, moderate to high, high to very high, we should try to increase by a magnitude of order, by a factor of 10. You don't have to stick to that. In this example, the probability scale has the highest, or the most likely to occur, at 50% or greater. If we were to go magnitude of order, the next level should be 5% or greater, right? But they're saying that if the hazardous event is just as likely to occur as it is not to occur, so 50-50 chance here, they rank that as a very high. That's the worst possible ranking. And then they scale it somewhat down from there. 20 to 50% is the next possible. And then 2 to 20 and below 2% is their lowest. So they've done this based on their own needs for their specific hazardous events and the risks that they are looking at.